The Joe Rogan Experience.
Did you see the thing with Don Lemon on CNN with those two guys where they started mocking Trump supporters and pretending they're stupid and using a Southern accent? And I'm like, you guys,
that's going to be a deplorable moment.
Prejudiced.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're pretending it's funny, which is even more offensive as a comedian. You know that shit ain't funny. And Don Lemon's like, oh! And then afterwards, even worse, he says he didn't realize that people were being mocked. And he didn't hear all of it.
Yeah, he said he was laughing over them speaking or something, so he didn't hear the whole thing.
He didn't realize that they were saying things that were offensive. I'm sorry. I would never mock anyone.
Well, because some forms of prejudice are okay and some aren't okay, right? You know,
exactly.
The one I really love about the social justice law, maybe this is just a British thing, but they're all really ageist. They've got a real problem with old people, right? And
old white people,
right? Well, well, there's that form of prejudice. I think it's because of Brexit, because it's disproportionately older people voted for Brexit. So they're like, oh, I don't care about old people. And in fact, you even had like the left-leaning papers, like The Guardian and The Independent, sort of talking like, well, they're all going to die off soon, and then we can have another vote.
Yes.
It's like, well, that's not how it works. It's not like old people die off and then there are no more old people. Like, people get older, people change their minds. But it was also really toxic. It was this thing of like, they've fucked up the future for the young, and they're all, it was really ugly.
Yeah.
And for some reason, these people who claim that immutable characteristics must be protected, doesn't matter if you're old. They'll go for you if you're old, or if you're, like you say, straight white male.
Straight white males
can go
fuck themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know how you can see that as anything as hypocritical.
Well,
to make that point.
You're logical and you're intelligent and you're objective. Of course you can't, but they're woke. You know, I mean, they might as well be in that Heaven's Gate cult. It's the same thing.
Well, I wonder if a lot of it is coming from the media, is coming from the press, is coming from I don't know what it's like. I mean, we saw that article from the New York Times. We've got stuff like that. We've got this paper, The Guardian and The Independent. They are pushing this stuff.
Hardcore, it sells.
Every single day. You know,
there's a lot of hate clicks too.
Yeah. Actually, shall I give you this example? Do you know that I trolled The Independent, the newspaper?
No.
Right. So I wanted to test as an experiment, right, whether they would publish something really stupidly woke just because it's woke, right? So I submitted an article,
like James Lindsay and
right, yeah,
Bogosian.
like that on a smaller scale, you know. But I thought I wrote an article arguing that comedians ought to be prosecuted for hate speech, right? Mentioning a few comics, and it was so obviously a hoax and so obviously stupid. And I made up a name and I sent it in, and they got back to me like, "This is brilliant. We love this. This is amazing." They were really loving it, and they published it. It's still online. And what's even worse...
How can we find it?
Right. It's called... the name is Liam... If you search Liam Evans...
Is that your name?
Yeah. That's my fake name. Liam Evans Independent. And the headline is something like... It's something to do with comedy. If you search that, it will come up.
Hate speech.
Hate speech or...
How many of these online fake names do you have? Here it is.
Right, as a comedy aficionado, I'm appalled at disgusting jokes creeping back into the industry. And look at underneath. Look at the tagline. Comedians crying free speech isn't good enough. Hate crime laws should apply to all of us. Now, the thing about this article, if you take the fourth letter of every sentence, it spells out, Titania McGrath wrote this, you gullible hacks. And they published it. And it's still up there. And this is a mainstream...
Oh my God, that's hilarious!
It's a mainstream newspaper. It's one of our major.
It's amazing that you were able to encode that.
Well, it also shows that they did fuck all editing. They just took it because they loved what it was saying. Yeah. And of course, the point isn't to try and fool people or be mean to people or anything. It's exposing this thing that the media will. If the woke media, if it furthers their agenda, they'll publish anything by someone who wasn't even known. He had no online presence. This guy. It's just they agreed with the sentiment, and
so they published it in their paper. You could just be a random, random person sends it in, and they're like, "Brilliant."
Yeah, they just agree,
and they put it in a national paper.
That was The Independent. It's like that. You know, it's. I can't believe they haven't taken it down yet.
They will now.
I only sort of revealed it a couple of months ago in this speech I gave. It was the one where I was with Peter and James Lindsay, and it went online, but I suppose not many people know about it. But they'll probably take it down now.
Yeah,
now. But you know, fuck them, because I actually think raise your standards. You know,
yes.
Like you stop feeding us this ideological bullshit.
I think there's an issue too with online journalism that these people are basically fighting for their own survival. There's not a lot of money in it. It's hard to get clicks. You have to have clickbait titles. You have to attack people for things. Like, in order to get like real engagement.
Yeah.
You have to kind of give in to a certain amount of madness.
Isn't that depressing? That's the same reason why the most extreme ideas on Twitter get more retweets. They get rewarded, don't they, with likes and retweets and everything.
Yeah.
It's like but that shouldn't. I have a real old-fashioned view of the media. I want to hold them to high standards, and I don't want them to be going for clickbait and saying the most extreme things. I think you're right, and I think they do it for that reason. But I just wish they wouldn't. I mean, save that for some, like the Huffington Post doing stuff like "Women are evil." That was one headline: "Women are evil," and stuff like BuzzFeed does it as well. And you just think, but when it comes to sort of reputable publications like the New York Times and like the Washington Post, why are they pushing this?
I think they're struggling.
So you think it's just about money?
I think that's a viable way to generate clicks, and clicks is what generates income. And I think there's a real issue. I know guys who are journalists and women as well, who will tell you that if their articles do not get a certain amount of engagement, they're in trouble. They can't just print things. Everything has to be something that is engaging. It has to be attractive. Look what Facebook's algorithm does, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that Facebook's algorithm does is it sort of in some way encourages people to be upset about things because it shows you a lot of things that you engage with, and a lot of times people tend to engage with things that they're upset by.
Yeah.
So whether it's abortion or Second Amendment or whatever the subject is,
right?
If you have an engagement with that and you respond a lot, and that's what they're going to show you over and over and over again. And it's really more of a symptom of what human beings are attracted to. A lot of times we're attracted to things that upset us.
But that's going to spiral further and further out of control. I mean,
what are you, logical?
But the culture war is being motored, is engineered by all of this stuff out there, and
that's the argument against Facebook, right? The culture war is being engineered by algorithms.
Yeah. And although I'm really torn on this actually, because I'm so against censorship in all its, I really am.
Of course, me too.
But I want. If journalists and commentators had high standards and were just being honest first and foremost, and they had integrity and they weren't just after clicks, then half of this stuff would go away. I feel
some of it would go away. My question is, they weren't doing this 15 years ago.
No.
So what will they be doing 15 years from now?
Well,
will this wear out? Will this dry up?
So that's the question, isn't it? Are we going to reach a tipping point?
Right. That's the question.
Right. Because every time I think we're nearly at the tipping point, they double down and it gets worse, right? So, after Trump's election, for instance, right, almost immediately you had the Women's March, and I didn't really know what that was about. Like it was some people were marching for feminism, some people were marching for environmental issues, some people were marching. It was really incoherent.
Yes.
A lot of them were dressed in the pink pussy hats and giant vagina costumes and stuff like that. I thought, but what are you protesting here? Are you saying that, and a lot of them had banners saying "Not my president," right?
Yeah.
So they're protesting against democracy then in that case. The same thing in the UK when we just had our general election. There was a big march with loads of people with banners saying "Not my prime minister." Boris Johnson's not my... Well, he is your prime minister because we had a democratic mandate, and that's how this works, right? So I think, but seriously, what is the point of that protest? Like,
I think they're just showing unity. They're showing that they're all together in their anger about this, and that in the future they're going to be a combined force, and they're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
I think there's a better way to do it without generating so much resentment, right? I think there's a more sophisticated approach, which is to say that democracy is sustained on the principle of the loser's consent. Any democracy is going to have a substantial proportion of the population who did not vote for the leader of that.
Sure.
And you have to have that, and the best way is through cogent persuasion and sensible discussion and of the issues, not dressing up as a vagina. That's just my view on that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in many ways, but I also think for them it's also fun to get together with a bunch of other like-minded people, and and then there's the men who joined in. Hey, girls, I'm with you.
Okay.